Today I want to talk about the purpose of education. What is the purpose for education? And do people even think about that anymore? What's your purpose for education? And do you think that people who teach, the people who create curriculum, and the people who shape education policy, do they have the same purpose for education as do the families, the parents, the students, the people who are most invested in education itself? And does that even matter? I mean, can't we all just rally around the good goal of providing a good education for everyone? Well, today I want to show that the purpose of education is actually very, very important. It's something that we should be clear on and be very intentional about, because it is actually what defines what a good education is. As parents, as teachers, as curriculum creators, as policymakers, our purpose for education shapes the way we provide education. It impacts what we say and do and how we say and do things. It impacts what we choose to focus on and what we tend to overlook. And it impacts directly just how we generally interact with our students. Let me tell you a little story to illustrate what I mean. There's a time in my teaching career that I'm not most proud of. And during that time, the reason why I'm not proud of it is because my purpose for education was to get my students into a good college or to help them get a good paying job. Now, wait a minute. I know what you must be saying. You're thinking, okay, what's wrong with that? That's a great goal, right? And yes, I agree with you. It's a great goal, but should it be the great goal? Because since that was my main purpose for educating, my main purpose for education, I really focused on certain things and overlooked other things that maybe I shouldn't have. For example, we celebrated good grades, productive behavior, and compliance. All really good things, yes. And things that don't fit into that, there were some bad consequences, right? Or just some unwanted consequences to help train my students, because I really wanted them to have the behaviors and characteristics that would help them fit into a good college or a good job. Now, because I was hyper focused on those things, I did not focus on some other very important things. For example, things like just general self-happiness and fulfillment, shoved under the rug. True friendships, leadership, service, self-sacrifice, all those things were personally important to me and things that I did worry about with regards to my students. But because of what my main purpose for education was, there wasn't really time or space in my classroom and in the way that I interacted with kids to really approach it more intentionally and more directly. It just kind of happened in a hodgepodge way when I wanted to address those things and help them with those areas in their lives. So yes, having a good education or having a good job, good college education could be a good goal for education, but should it be the goal for education? I'm saying that word a lot. But ultimately, when I think back on it, I think what I was really doing was teaching my students to live for a living rather than to live for a life. And I was sending them this very powerful, yet subtle, right, message that their value, their inherent human value, was based on external factors. That their human value was based on a moving scale, and that value was determined by their utility to society. That if somehow they weren't productive, they didn't have the good job making money or have the good education, that somehow they as people were worth less. And when I look inside of myself, and when you look at the people that you love, you know that that's not true at all, right? And some of us may have those ideas because, yes, that's our mainstream culture, right? That somehow our value is based on our use to other people, but we know that that is a lie. Okay, let me talk about another really popular purpose for education. Well, what about knowledge or learning for the sake of knowledge or learning? Well, isn't that the same thing as technology for the sake of technology? Technology, right, is a tool, and so is learning, so is knowledge. It's a tool. It's something you use to achieve something greater, right? For example, Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, he, for the rest of his life, after World War II, dedicated himself to lobbying, to making sure that other weapons of mass destruction were controlled, and he opposed the development of the hydrogen bomb, which was an even more powerful weapon of mass destruction. So for him, do you think it was just learning knowledge for the sake of knowledge? I mean, it's not. What are the acceptable things that we use knowledge for, right? For example, Dr. Jerome Lejeune, am I pronouncing his name correctly? He was the one who discovered the connection between chromosomes and disease, right? He discovered trisomy 21, which is related to Down syndrome, but he was very much against and horrified by how people use his discovery in order to abort babies with Down syndrome before they were born. Okay, so there are certain things that are just not allowable, even though we can do it, even though we have the knowledge and the ability to do certain things. Should we, right? Should we pursue, should we go down that road just because we can? So I think that's the danger then when we have goals like learning for the sake of learning when it comes to education. So then what should be the purpose of education? And I know some of you guys might already have that in your minds, and I may not be able to change your mind, but I just want us to take a step back and really think about this, right? Think about what your purpose of education is, how it impacts how you interact with your students, if you're an educator, how you create curriculum, create education policy, or how you parent, really, like if you're a homeschooling parent, how you educate. And just think about, where does that put our children? Where does that put our future generations? Is it for something good? Is it for their overall happiness, right? And again, there's another question there. I mean, what is happiness? What is joy, right? But I just want us to take this idea, this purpose of education, and revisit it and rally around at least the goal of having a purpose for education that is good, that is going towards something higher. I know personally, I myself, when I look at the world, when I look at the complexity, the order, and when I look inside of myself, and the complexity, order, the depth there, and the people that I love, I see that there is something good, that there's something true, and there's something beautiful. And I think it would do us very well if our purpose for education was to discover the good, the true, and the beautiful in the world and in other people and inside of us, right? To help our students find that within themselves and within the world, and to pursue it, to have that be the lens in which they see the world and themselves and how they interact with everything and everyone. And I think that ultimately will lead to greater joy, and all the other things will come, right? Like service, self-sacrifice, true friendships, leadership in the family, in the workplace, or wherever they end up. And that's where Loretto Learning is at. That's what I just wanted to be very transparent about that. It's one of the most important things. And where I am and Loretto Learning, that's our goal for education, is to help our students discover all that is good and true and beautiful in the world and inside themselves, and to pursue that and to have that shape their lives and their interactions. So I hope this has been a little bit helpful to you today, and hopefully that you will spend some time just thinking about what your purpose for education is, and let's rally together to pursue something good, to pursue something beautiful, and to just say no and enough to divisiveness, to treating people based on how they're useful to us or to society, and just to all the ugly things. There's enough of it. So I hope you are having a blessed day.